Spoiler alert. In the book, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, the fourth agreement, I'm going to spoil it for you, is always do your best. Today, we're talking about perfectionism. Always do your best sounds kind of exhausting, doesn't it? Always do your best. So the good news is that Don Miguel Ruiz in the book is quick to explain that the rule, always do your best, means never pushing yourself to do more than your best. We're doing our best this morning here in the sanctuary, and to everyone online. The world is spinning and nothing is static. People have COVID and plans are changing at the last minute, and we're just figuring out how to put together a church service in the midst of it. So come back next week on Zoom, not hybrid next week. Come back on Zoom for a whole different experience. We're just embracing trying our best. And that can be hard in this present culture that we live in that puts so much emphasis on perfectionism. So I want to talk about that, perfectionism. It's a cultural disease, and we all have it to some degree. Perfectionism is one of the defining characteristics of white supremacy culture. According to author Anne Lamott, perfectionism is, quote, the voice of the oppressor, the enemy of the people. It will keep you cramped and insane your whole life. I can relate. Extreme perfectionism is insanity, which is why we are told to always try our best, but not try harder than our best, not try to do more than our best. Dr. Brené Brown has said that studies show, and this is another quote, that perfectionism is a self-destructive and addictive belief system that fuels this primary thought: if I look perfect and do everything perfectly, I can avoid or minimize the painful feelings of shame, judgment, and blame. So it becomes a loop. You know, I won't allow myself to make mistakes. I will force myself to do everything perfectly, but I'm human, so then I inevitably make mistakes. So then I try harder not to allow myself to make mistakes, and this loop becomes really destructive. So, you know, in this culture that we live in the United States today, this white supremacist meritocracy, we find ourselves defined by our achievements. And it can be really, really hard to recognize the inherent worth and dignity that exists in all of us. Okay, what did I just say? White supremacist meritocracy? I know. What kind of sermon is this, right? It's sounding heavy and political and negative. But here's the thing. We live in a white supremacist culture. We just do. And that's not what the sermon is about today. So I'm not asking you to feel bad about it. I'm not asking you to feel guilty. I'm just stating a fact, like the sun is in the sky. We live in what is mostly, essentially, on its better days, a meritocracy. The idea that we are judged on how well we do, how hard we work to get ahead. And I'm saying on its better days, it's not a bad way to live. It's not always the way things work out, and it's certainly not perfect. But the problem, one of the many problems, with this white supremacist meritocracy is that it focuses on perfectionism. And perfectionism focuses on your mistakes and views those mistakes as deep character flaws rather than what they are, just mistakes. Because your worth and your dignity are inherent in you. You cannot achieve them. You can't try really, really hard and somehow get more dignity or worth. You can't attain them through hard work or study. You can't achieve perfection. That's the thing. You never, ever, ever, as long as you're living this life in this body that you are in right now, will never be perfect. You can't, and neither can anyone else. The culture that we live in right now tells us that there is one right way to do things. This is white supremacy culture, according to the social justice group Surge, showing up for racial justice. They say perfectionism is the conditioned belief and attitude that we can be perfect based on a standard set of rules that we did not create and that we are led to believe will prove our value. And that's an incorrect belief. We cannot be perfect. But under perfectionism, we are meant to constantly feel that we're not living up to this possibility that maybe we could be perfect. And studies have shown that perfectionism, a mindset of perfectionism, does not help people achieve more or do better. In fact, striving for perfection actually inhibits creativity and flow. It can inhibit communication and interactions. Perfectionism leads to anxiety for clear reasons and to depression because it's a lie, because it's based on black and white thinking, because it focuses on the person's actions rather than the person's worth. This has all been a downer so far, but I have some good news for you. Now that I've spoiled the ending of the 4 agreements, always try your best and never try harder than that. I've got some good news to make up for that spoiler. We are saved from perfection. I'm quoting UU minister Reverend Elizabeth Nagayan, who said, "We are already saved from perfection. Doing this work is not neat and tidy. It is messy. Develop the spiritual fortitude to embrace the discomfort and the mistakes." Develop the spiritual fortitude to embrace the discomfort and the mistakes. That's something that we come back to pretty frequently as you use the spiritual fortitude to be able to tolerate discomfort. This is learning to have resilience around discomfort, around just tolerating it. The discomfort around your own mistakes, the discomfort around other people's mistakes. So this is good news. This is liberating. You are saved from perfection. You can let go of it. It's already not possible, so you're saved from it. You do not need to continue to be a servant of perfectionism. We are all saved from perfection by our very nature as human beings. Not one of us, not a single one of us, will attain perfection in this lifetime. So we are saved from it. Dr. Tema Okun prescribes a learning attitude as an antidote to perfectionism. She suggests cultivating what she calls an expectation that everyone will make mistakes and that those mistakes offer opportunities for learning. So we humans, especially UUs, often wonder, why are we here? What is the point of all of this? And I am pretty confident in telling you that we are not here to be perfect. For one thing, who even decides what perfect is? I do believe that we are here to learn. And we learn by trying and failing and making mistakes. We learn and we learn and we learn through our imperfections and the imperfections of others. I learn from yours, you learn from mine. And again, who is the judge anyway? Who gets to decide how perfect you or I are? Well, I'll tell you, actually, I do. I have now appointed myself arbiter of all that is perfect, and I say that you are. So there. I mean, we can all see how silly this striving for perfection is, right? We can choose to go through life critiquing or appreciating. We can choose to see the good in people and maybe even in ourselves. Because I'll tell you right now, as a universalist, I see you as perfect. If you are bumbling through life, making mistakes, figuring out as you go, sometimes even doing harm and then learning from it, that's perfect. Just keep doing that. That, I think, is why we are here. And if it turns out I was wrong, go ahead and find me in the afterlife and let me know how wrong I was. I'm not perfect, but I'm willing to place my bets on this. You are a miracle, a divine essence, a reflection of the eternal now. And striving for perfection is a very silly thing for such a magnificent creature to become preoccupied with. So, joining together, we can develop the spiritual fortitude to embrace the discomfort of our mistakes. And how do we do that? Through a learning attitude. Seeing yourself as a creature that is moving through this life as though through a school. Recognizing that we're already doing what we're supposed to be doing. Learning, making mistakes, observing others' mistakes, and always learning. The Buddhists call this beginner's mind. And I want to read from this book, Bless the Imperfect, where Reverend Sue Phillips describes a moment where she was very embarrassed right in the beginning of her ministerial internship because she was so overwhelmed and had so much on her mind that she went to extinguish the chalice at the end of a meeting, leaned over to the flame, and forgot how to do it. She literally forgot how to extinguish fire. Oh my gosh. Some people call that a brain fart. It's a pretty embarrassing moment, and she shares it because she's sharing her imperfection and she's sharing her beginner's mind. She says, forgetting to blow out that candle was a spiritual lesson. It had to do with becoming a beginner again. By the way, someone actually nudged her and said, you blow on it. And she went, oh. It had to do with becoming a beginner again and giving up hard-won claims to expertise. It has to do with asking for help and then getting it. It has to do with cultivating what Buddhists call beginner mind. Beginner's mind approaches everything as if for the first time. It is the mind that is innocent of preconceptions and expectations, judgments and prejudices. Beginner's mind is simply present to experience and see things as they are. Beginner's mind faces life as a small child, full of curiosity and wonder and amazement, and it is unattached to knowing anything in particular. So there's a connection there with beginner's mind and cultivating a tolerance for the uncomfortable and the mistakes that you and I, certainly, and everyone will constantly be making forever. Think about that for a moment. All of us will constantly be making mistakes forever. Good thing we are saved from perfection. Albert Einstein said that the person who never made a mistake never tried anything new. So here we are, trying something new, trying to push through and figure out how to do worship services during COVID. Mistakes will be made. Thank goodness we are saved from perfection. Let's keep trying new things. And let's sing together now our final hymn, number 131, Love Will Guide Us.